Welcome to the Hobby Chop Podcast, a brand new podcast. Three guys with three very different lanes in the hobby. You got me, Big Ken. We have Jordan at Zips Cards and Tyler M&TCards. I think the best thing to do, guys, is just start off with some intros. I'm going to let you guys go first. I'm going to finish off. So, Jordan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up um in basically I was born in the late 90s, grew up in the 2000s, and I remember ripping a ton of baseball as a kid. Especially I loved Allen and Ginter when I was younger. So that was something that I always just ripped and accumulated. And then I got more involved with sports as I grew up, and I just time and time kind of got away from me for cards and collectibles. So then yeah, I got hurt as I was playing college baseball. I blew my knee out essentially, and I found my way back to cards, and I've been back in it since just before the pandemic started, and yeah, just been enjoying it that way.
So I know you've been on my podcast a couple times, and kind of when you jumped back in, you were doing a lot of the same stuff I was, right? A lot of modern stuff, setting up at shows and things like that. But lately, over this last, I don't know, year, 6 months, 8 months, you've made some changes of what you do and kind of are doing. Well, I'm not going to say the opposite of what I do, but something completely different. So just kind of describe your lane in the hobby.
Yeah, so I would say most recently I've been finding collections to buy out and then piece out after I buy the collections. It's kind of funny because when I got back into it, I came across my old collection and didn't really know what to do with it. But I knew I wanted to buy boxes to open when I first came back in with no real knowledge. And so I sold my collection to someone for way too cheap looking back on it now. And so essentially now I'm buying collections, not nearly as much as, not as cheap as the guy bought mine off of me, but yeah, I'm back to doing that, and it's fun because a part of the collection buyouts that I enjoy is that, like, some of the key cards that's piques your interest when you're buying the collection, but going through an entire collection and then finding things you don't know about, or like surprising big cards that you didn't know about within the collection, is fun for me. So, and then I have different outlets that I sell them through, whether it's some, I sell some to repackers through consignment, I grade some, and yeah.
Nice, nice. How about you, Tyler?
So I would first, I'm Tyler, M&T Cards. I would qualify myself as the baby in the hobby amongst the three of us. As so very much like Jordan, just 10 years older. I grew up in the hobby in really the junk wax era, uh, early '90s, mid '90s. Gravitated towards obviously Jordan and Jordan inserts, and a lot of baseball as a kid. Fast forward, go off to college, play golf in college, kind of leave it behind, as a lot of people do at that point in their life. Fast forward to Christmas time 1 year ago, basically. I am back in the Midwest where I grew up with my brother, and he is in a break on Whatnot, and then convinces me to join him. I had a Victor Wimbiana presentations case hit out of NBA Hoops Hobby Box, very first break I buy into. So I think this is real easy. Um, and off we go. Very quickly, I found that it's not that easy, and ripping wax is not a great idea. But I really enjoyed being back in it, and I kind of set out some collecting goals. Really, I'm a huge Cincinnati Reds fan, and I wanted to collect um, a graded card of every one of the players on the 75 and the 76 back-to-back World Series rosters, as well as some of my favorite players. And so how was I going to do that? I, found a way to kind of jump into the hobby as a quote unquote business, as a way to, meet people, because I'm still fairly new to the Northeast, and fulfill my collecting goals. And that's my intro back into the hobby. And it's been a very slippery slope because I'm knee deep in it at this point in just 1 year.
And you do a lot of you collect older baseball too, right? Like
Yeah,
vintage and things like that.
Yeah, vintage baseball, and then kind of my lane in the hobby is I would say that I'm willing to do anything, because I probably am as quick a mover as I've seen so far. I'm my philosophy is, see the right buy, make the buy, move it for a small margin, and move quantity over chasing a massive margin. I just always feel, for me, it's easier to take that money and get it working towards the next item, and and just try to look for trends and angles. I'm a data guy by nature, so that's kind of how I approach it. Is just look for observation and trend, and try to get in where I can, and move pretty quickly.
Yeah, and just a side note there, you and Jordan both move your cards, pretty quickly, and you more like we've traveled to shows together, and you've picked up shows, and we haven't even hit the highway leaving. You sometimes not even out of the parking garage, and you're like, oh yeah, that card, yeah, I just moved it, like that type of thing. So, and Jordan, with your collections, you're the same way. And I talked about the three of us having different lanes in the hobby, and I'm Big Ken. I mean, most people know me, but I'm not going to go back to my childhood days of collecting. But back in in the late '80s, early '90s, I've been a serial collector my whole life. I've anything that I felt would have value in the future, I collected, and cards was one of them. And I had a lot of hockey cards. And when I jumped back into the hobby, just during COVID, thinking that like everybody else, my cards were worth a fortune and I was going to be rich. And just to find out they were junk wax like most everybody else's stuff. I did have a few nice cards, but for the most part, there wasn't that much value in it. Started setting up at shows. Started my own collection. Sometimes I was collecting the same stuff that I was trying to buy and sell at shows, and I quickly realized that I had to change that. I could not, for me, it just wasn't going to work out. So I changed what I PC. I PC Trinity Rodman. I PC WNBA cards right now, and I talked about this most recently. Is I kind of have a Caitlin Clark PC right now, just because all these cards I'm grading, every time I get a 10, I keep it. And if there's more than 110, then whatever else is there, I just sell it off. But I keep keeping, I'm collecting that way. And I have a number of, other cards, single cards that are part of my PC, some Mahomes rookie autos, some Mahomes rookies, Mike Tyson, some Mike Tyson cards. So these are the type of stuff that I PC. But I'm a gambler maybe in the hobby, you want to call me. I do a lot of ripping. I enjoy ripping stuff, and now I become a serial grader. At no time do I have less than 100 cards sitting at PSA waiting for them to come back, because I need these cards to set up at shows, right? So so that, again, the three different, and that's kind of putting everybody together here. And I think that's probably a good foundation of just three guys that kind of do three different things. And of course, we're age group, we have some years between us, and I think it's going to help out with opinions and thoughts and prospecting and things like that. So I'm hoping this is going to be as good as I think it's going to be.
Absolutely.
So let's start out. We just had the wild card weekend, and you guys can chime in. Wild card weekend has always been my favorite weekend of the year. There's always been like great games, teams that are haven't done that well during the season, and all of a sudden they're hitting their stride late, and there's some upsets and there's some things like that. But then this year, as we went into this, and I was so excited for this weekend, I thought a lot of these games were somewhat boring. I didn't think they were, as exciting as I expected them to be. There was a couple exciting games, but for the most part, I felt they were boring. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's an interesting starting point when you look at Chargers and Texans, and everyone's around the media is literally saying the Chargers receive a bye for getting the Texans, and then they get blown out. And I think Herbert threw as many picks in this game as he did like on the year. So I mean, you have that starting out, and from a card perspective, when I do the collection buyouts, like I don't exactly get to choose what I'm buying, right? You're taking everything. And a good chunk of that collection was some nice Herbert stuff. So like I'm definitely feeling that. Like that's kind of terrible. Another thing though is like football, like as Ken, that's like what you've mainly dealt with for the past several years, is football being a really main part of your inventory and what you move. Like everyone's so reactionary in football. But like keep in mind, like this is Herbert's first year with Harbaugh, and they had to rebuild the O-line. They lost Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, so his number one was Lad McConkey and Huge, aka Sir Drops a Lot. So like you look at all this, and like obviously it was a tough game. They lost, but like I'm not someone who's like all out on Herbert. I'll tell you that much. I mean, like, I think it's a game. Like they played tough all year, and like kudos to Stroud on the other side, because his line was decimated. He lost his number 2 and 3 receivers, and he came out and showed out on why there was some hype about him. You know what I mean?
He threw a few picks himself too, though, right? I mean,
I think he had one. I think he had one.
There was definitely, I mean, we were listening to that game in the car on the way home from Causeway, and there was definitely interception, fumble, intercept. I mean, it was a turnover.
Yeah, Stroud was 282 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, compared to Herbert, who was 242, 1 touchdown, and 4 picks. So, like, it's tough when you get to the playoffs. It's one and done. You have that bad game in the playoffs. That's kind of it.
I know they have a new coach there for the Chargers, but I really feel the loss. I think that team, I think Herbert mostly feels the loss of Austin Eckler. I think that having that element of that dump off when things weren't open downfield, and I think that was a lot of for a number of years with him, and that was the strategy with that team, and not having that this year, not being able to have that player, I think that hurt them. And I think the coach, being a college coach, I know he's coached in the NFL, but coming from college, I think he tried to slow that game down, and where I think he should have tried to, turn it into the air attack.
Yeah. So kind of starting with like the whole weekend in general, I think this first weekend we saw the first really good example of what happens when you expand the playoffs and you give that first overall seed the bye and you bring in that 7th team. You get some mediocre football teams into the playoffs, aka the Steelers. But kind of looking at that LA game and Houston game, I'm probably more out on Herbert than most people, because I think a lot of people are enamored with his skills, his size, etc. Where when I look at it is, he's been in the league since 2020. He's never won a playoff game. He never won in college. At some point, he just is what he is, in my opinion. Now, I don't think his market from a card perspective really moves based on this game. I mean, it's an outlier game for him. He's never had a 4 interception game in his life before this one game. But his market's already so low that I don't think it moves down anymore. So if you do believe in him and you believe that him and Harbaugh are going to be successful in the long term, there's never been a better time to buy him.
Yep.
In all honesty. But then on the flip side, you look at, C.J. Stroud. He's got 2 years in the league. He's got 2 playoff wins. Two more than Herbert. He's got as many playoff wins as Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And it's in his second year in the league. Yeah. Right. And, I think CJ took a beating all year long from pundits and, the market in general. You saw with his cards, nothing is more evident than his PSA 10 Prism Silver, right? I think it's a $430 card today, and it was a $900 card forever. But when you think about CJ in the long term, he lost Stephon Diggs. He lost Tank Dell again. He's got an O-line that can't block for him still. Still won a playoff game, still win the division. And if you think about him long term, he's going to have opportunity after opportunity because, listen, I'm a Colts fan. Anthony Richardson's not the answer. So they're not – that division is the Texans for as long as it takes the others to figure something out. So probably at least, 2, 3, 4 years, he's probably got as streamlined a path into the playoffs and opportunities to win playoff games as anybody in the league. And he's clearly very talented, right? It's one of the best he put together one of the best rookie seasons that we've seen.
Yeah.
And, again, I think it's interesting about, both the winner and the loser of this game. There's probably a never better time to buy either of them.
Yeah.
If you believe
and
in either side.
Do you think the pop count hurt his cards too with the price drop? Do you think the pop count on Stroud hurt the pricing on his cards, or do you think it was just the season that hurt the?
Well, I think the pop count certainly didn't help it. It seemed like everything in 2023 Prism got a 10. So, that, whereas I think it's going the opposite way this year in 24 based on early grading numbers and generate reports. But, that didn't help it stabilize at some point. But at the same time, I really think that just when he didn't look as sharp at the beginning of the season, everything just plummeted. And at the same time, it just never recovered because people kind of got that taste in their mouth of quote unquote about him. And again, he's a second year quarterback, so he's got more film on tape. The league starts to figure him out more. And oh, by the way, you just gave a second year quarterback a bunch of new weapons he's never played with. Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon, etc. It takes time. And that's just kind of, what it is, and it helps. And also from a card market perspective, probably didn't help with how much Optic got pushed deeper and deeper into the summer. You didn't really have time for that market to bake, and then you had all the things, with the downtowns and stuff like that. So I think there was a lot of things working against his market at, really going into the season, which, to your point, the pop counts really kind of pushed it down.
I also think it's important to note too that the Texans started out pretty hot, and then I feel like it was almost as soon as Nico Collins went down, they started to struggle. So they win that game. They don't have Diggs or Tank Dell, but they have Nico, who's their guy. He's a clear number one alpha. He's, he could run with any of them in the league. So I think that might have been kind of underplayed because even when I forgot, it was one of the, because Nico was on my fantasy team. So in the playoffs, Nico only had 17 yards in one game, but he has 2 touchdowns. I forget who that was against late in the season. But you're missing that. Having, and then in the game, he had 122 yards and a touchdown, I think, this past game. And just to go back to that CJ Silver Prism, the PSA 10 pop count is there's 2,046 PSA 10 silvers.
Yeah.
That's significant. Yeah.
And I know you're talking about his CJ's surrounding, supporting cast, right? But then we take a guy like Mahomes, right, who we'll talk about that now because that's who they're gonna meet the Chiefs, right?
Right.
You think about a guy like Mahomes that it just kept turning into the next guy up. Like it did not matter to him, when people got hurt on his team and he lost people, it just kept turning into the next guy up and the next guy up. And I know a lot of people are yelling at the radio and the screen now saying, "Oh, they got so lucky," and all this other stuff. But still, I mean, I'm not just talking about this year. If you go back over the last couple of years, the last 2 years, I just think they've completely been next guy up. And I mean, for a guy like Stroud, I would like to see that. I would like to see, all right, Tank Dell is down and Nico Collins is down. Who's next? I don't care who you're going to put out there. I'm going to put the ball in his hand, right? And I think he could be that kind of quarterback. I really do. I think he's got enough talent to be able to do that.
Well, and I think I think he's close to that already because if you look back at his rookie year, right, and going to the playoffs, I mean, Noah Brown had 200-yard game seasons for him in his rookie year. Right, and then that's a guy they released. But I think to Jordan's point about Nico is when you're a second-year quarterback, the next guy up is just not there because you're not veteran enough at that point, right? Mahomes had safety blankets his first few years in the season, and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, who never missed a game.
Yeah. I'd absolutely. I would love to jump in on that because, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that Stroud is better than Mahomes. Like, that is not what I'm saying. But, like, in Mahomes' first starting year, you're talking about checkdowns. He had Kareem Hunt, who was unreal. Like he was putting up CMC prime fantasy football stats with the catches out of the backfield. And if Tyreek wasn't open, he had Kelce, like a prime Kelce. So and he had a way better you have Andy Reid. You have that whole, and was it Eric Bieniemy early on for him?
Yep.
Yeah. Like Stroud doesn't have that. And I'm not trying to make like excuses for Stroud, but like Mahomes came into maybe the best system you could have come into as a quarterback. And that's nothing against him. That's how it is. But like he had all that foundation to grow, and just the cultivation of Mahomes is clear. And now he's adapted to be able to be like, oh, I'm throwing to Justin Watson, right? Like he can do that now in year whatever,
Yeah, the quote unquote safety blanket matters, right? Which I think is your point, Jordan, about Nico and Tank. And really, you look at the rookie year, Tank was more of the safety blanket. And when Tank came back healthy this year, he was that again until he got hurt again, right? But when he has both of those guys on the field, Stroud looks really good. I would assume that, if it plays out with Diggs long term, et cetera, that will get to that point. But I think that's very important for Stroud, which is why, to be honest with you, from like a card market perspective, I would probably go jump all back in on CJ, which I was, I probably didn't buy that much, when it was crazy hot. But right now, I think the talent is just too hard to ignore, and that's hard for me to say because he's going to kick my Colts butt for the next 10 years.
I hear that, but for me, I'm just going to wait a week and let him lose to Mahomes. And
right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like, I'm not going to go out this week and buy him one. I don't think they're getting through the next round, right? Like, I just, in Kansas City, like, nah, yeah.
Buying Super Bowl weekend.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. But overall, like this, I will say, I think if Stroud lost this game and it like 32 to like convert, like it was, everything was swapped, his market would have just tanked even worse. Like, I think it was way more extreme for positives or negatives for Stroud than it was for Herbert. For
sure.
Yeah.
So do you think now after this, Stroud is a buy right now?
I think he bought himself some time to be a buy. That's
so now they play Kansas City this week. I mean, so if it's a close game, I mean, I say it's a close game because I'm already assuming that Kansas City is going to win. Do you think that they have the ability to come in and beat the Chiefs? Do you think this is a one and done? Do you think if they win, obviously his prices could go up on his cards, but if they lose, do they drop? If it's a close game, do they drop? Do they go up? What's your thoughts?
I don't think this Chief game really makes a difference, unless he wins, right? Like, and I don't think losing it hurts. I think the spread is like 8.5 for the Chiefs. So like, I don't see, like, if he plays good, that's not going to hurt him, But like,
Mm.
I also don't see this game. Like, I just don't see them really being in it, and I don't think Vegas does either. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'd answer the question one way to close us out on this game, but Ken, you and I are flying to Atlanta in a little over a week. After he loses the Chiefs, I'll be buying CJ Stroud in Atlanta. When we go to Mohegan mid-February, I'll be buying CJ Stroud. Because I think when we get to midsummer, he's one. The hype will be back on there, and that's my thought. But I wouldn't buy him this week. No way in hell.
So let's look at well, we had the next two games. They were both somewhat boring games, right? Ravens, Steelers, Bills, Broncos. It looked like the Broncos were going to give the Bills a good game, and then that kind of fell apart. But so here, I mean, if we put these four games together, obviously we got Josh Allen with the Bills, Lamar Jackson with the Ravens, Bo Nix, rookie, with the Broncos, and you, Tyler, you almost said it was a team that maybe shouldn't have been there, that they got in, that they were just their record just wasn't as bad as the other bad teams, right? I don't know if that's kind of how you put it, but I mean, so I know Josh Allen. I know people. All of a sudden, we're starting to see his cards show up at all these shows. Like now that the MVP race and all this other stuff. Bo Nix, obviously, his pricing is coming up. Then we have Lamar, who's, again, I mean, we've got these quarterbacks that have seen, I don't want to say their heyday, but their early days where their prices went way up, and then they get to like Lamar gets to a playoff game, he loses, and his prices go down again, and then people, they don't want to buy back in. And I think Josh Allen has been the same way, where people felt that he can't win the big game, right? So is this year any different, or are we going to see the same thing with these quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think the Pittsburgh's easy to sum up. I think they overachieved. They got in. No business being there. Really had no chance whatsoever. The real question for Pittsburgh, from a hobby perspective, is: are we going to endure another summer of Justin Fields hype? Because Russell Wilson's cooked and he's out. And if they're going to go in with Justin Fields, because he did put good game tape, on there. So do we see Justin Fields? Lamar, sticking with that game, Lamar is the most polarizing market. Like, you're talking about a two-time, possibly getting ready to be a three-time MVP, and his cards don't match that. But it's just because of the playoff record. Lamar, this game did nothing for Lamar's market. Lamar's whole market is dependent on this week's game against Buffalo. And then from my perspective, Allen's market's already starting to really jump. Like, I don't know if you all have looked at it, but his PSA 10 optic is selling for $400 right now, and that's
base?
10 comps in a row. Base optic PSA 10 is $400. I mean, that card was $200 7 months ago. So I think what Allen has the ability to do from a card market perspective, and really from a legacy perspective, is to kind of put himself up. If he goes in and beats Lamar this weekend, his cards have a new baseline, right? And they probably won't dip back below that, as long as then they go on to play, let's say, the Chiefs, and it's a hyper competitive game like we would expect it to be, or they win, right? So he has that ability. And then from Bo Nix's perspective, I think he's probably going to end up being the second most expensive quarterback to buy in this year's class, which is really interesting because it's not somewhere where I personally think I will go, because I think he's in a really good system and he's going to be a really solid quarterback and he'll win a lot of games. But I think there's capped upside because of skill, but also just because of the division he plays in.
Yep.
Right. So, the odds of him winning a division are very slim for probably at least the next 4 or 5 years, as long as Patrick Mahomes is in uniform, and so he just has some capped upside there to me, and because he's never going to be a guy that I think that's going to go out and throw for 5,000 yards and 45 touchdowns. Right? That's not his skill set. So, wrapping those two games up, to me, Lamar Allen really comes down to this weekend. Do we get to enjoy some more Justin Fields time, which I would really like, because I love the Justin Fields market. It's my favorite. And then Bo Nix, who I just probably wouldn't dabble in. Even quick flips maybe, but not really for me.
Jordan, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I know you said Allen and Lamar, it comes to, next week, obviously, when they face off. But I really think for them, it's past that. They need to get to the Super Bowl. And I think they need to win the Super Bowl, because it's just going to be the same thing. It's can either of these guys win the big playoff game? With Allen, it's just can he beat Mahomes in the playoffs? Yeah. That's what it is, right? And that's why, you talk about the Steelers, I think for the best TV, the Bengals would have been the team instead. You know what I mean? Talent wise, right? Not record or whatever, but just who you'd want to see be able to go toe to toe with the Giants. It's Joe Burrow in that offense, and then they have the Scarecrows on defense. But I just think whoever wins next week, Allen or Lamar, will get a bump for a week, and then if they lose, they'll just come back down a little bit. I also think I can't imagine Lamar not winning the MVP after the most recent All-Pro voting, and the same voters for MVP, and he just got voted QB1. What is it, 30-18 or something over Allen? So I think that's pretty telling. If not, that seems like a flawed system. But yeah, for these games, I really think it's just about someone needs to beat Patrick Mahomes. It always goes back to him, just like when Brady was playing, he's the standard. Because for every sport, you always have the GOAT, and that's who all the pricing goes off of, if we're going to relate it to cards and not just football. So someone has to take them down, or else what are we doing? You know?
Yeah. So just circling back to Knicks, do you think there's going to be, because making the playoffs, even though he's in a tough division, making the playoffs, do you think there is going to be a surge? People are going to be prospecting his cards going into the spring and early summer next year, or do you think he?
Yeah, he'll have shelf life, and he'll probably be all right. And then another thing on top of it too, a big part of the hobby is everyone wants to grade the new product, because ideally it's going to have the best grade rather than something that's been sitting around out of packs, right? So there's going to be a ton of Bo Nix transactions. I would rather Herbert than Bo Nix. I don't know about you guys. We talk about that division. I mean, I'd rather Bo Nix whoever the Raiders are going to have. But what did you say, Tyler? That you don't see Bo Nix throwing for 5,000 yards or something like that?
Yeah, I just don't think those physical skills are there. I think Nix is going to be the second most expensive through the summer, the second most expensive quarterback we see in this year's class. And long term, my prospecting, I think will be the third or fourth best quarterback in this class.
Yeah,
and I think this is a really good class in the long run. I'm really high on Michael Penix. So I would much rather prospect there, because he's got better weapons. I can get in cheaper. He's got better weapons, and I can absolutely got a better path to winning long term with an organization who's willing to spend money. And really on top of that, if I'm looking at this, really after the next few weeks, I'm going to be able to buy CJ Stroud cheaper than I can buy Bo Nix.
Probably.
In a lot of situations, probably.
Yep.
And 100 out of 100 times, I'm going to buy CJ Stroud over Bo Nix.
Yep.
I guess that's the way that I break it down for myself and look at it.
Yep.
Ken, what do you think about these games?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm high on Michael Penix. Obviously, we haven't gotten to Washington yet, when I'm looking at the rookie quarterbacks, but of course, Jaden Daniels is all the hype right now. And from a guy like me who's been, looking ahead at this point, this is the point of every year that I look ahead and I say to myself, with all the information I have, who do I think is the quarterback I want to own more of, come, the national, right? Come that time of year, like who's everybody going to be hot on? And not put all my eggs in one basket, right? But buy more of one and more of another. So while I'm ripping product and I'm pulling Jaden Daniels cards, I'm excited because I'm looking up comps and I can see by far his prices are pretty high. But I have a feeling a lot like what happened with Stroud last year when his prices got so high. People said, well, is there anybody else I could prospect on? Because I don't want to spend all that money. And I think that's when the Michael Penix and the Bo Nix and even JJ McCarthy after what happened with Darnold and the Vikings last night. I mean, everybody, there was this talk saying, I heard this buzz all weekend last weekend and for about a week where people saying, oh, McCarthy to the Giants and they're going to re-sign Darnold to a longer term contract. And I thought to myself, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. And then after last night, I could imagine that the Vikings are like, bro, you're staying right here. They put a big bear hug on him, right? After what happened last night. So, I think he's going to be
I can't wait till we
guy.
get to that game.
It's such a crazy turn of events for Sam Darnold. Maybe we just hop to it right now because that was such a good transition.
No, I want to go in order here because I want to get your predictions.
Okay.
So this weekend we have Ravens and Bills. So predictions on this game. Who wins? You don't have to break it down. Just tell me who you think wins this game.
Let's challenge in the Bills.
Oh yeah. See, I think the Ravens will win. Yeah.
So you think Ravens, Tyler? Your Bills.
Yeah, I have no faith in Lamar to win a big game. He's got almost as many turnovers in the playoffs as he does touchdowns.
Yeah,
in his career.
He looked pretty good last week.
I also like
playing the Steelers.
I'm going to go with one of you now because you're both split. I also like the Ravens, and I'm just going to quickly say I think Derrick Henry is going to be the difference maker in this game. My opinion, my thought, and I don't see personally for me whether who wins this game. I have no motivation to buy either of those quarterback cards. Zero motivation unless they're coming at such a discount that I can't turn away from. I'm certainly not going to chase either one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you, Ken, because I think the AFC Championship game is the first game of the year. The Chiefs and Ravens. Isaiah likely by a toe. I just think it comes back to that, and it's beautiful. That's how the season started, and then you get the AFC Championship. Like that's how I see it. But they're in Buffalo though. That means something. I mean, but I think the Ravens are still favored now by like a point and a half.
Yeah, I think them adding Derrick Henry to that team changed them into it, made them more of a playoff team because Derrick Henry is December, January player. Like this is the guy who shows up to play during these games. And if you've played fantasy at all, over his career, like you take him, and even if he didn't do well in September, October, November, if you held on to him long enough, come fantasy championship, he was probably going to win you a championship because he's running over people when it's 10 degrees outside and 15 degrees outside, and that's that's what I think is going to be the difference in this game.
If it's snowing in Vermont, Derrick Henry goes off. That's like have you ever heard of that? Like whenever it's snowing in Vermont and Derrick Henry's playing a football game, he goes off. That's just, it's strange, but hey, I guess we better look for that. We better look for that when they play.
I'll stay with the quarterback who has proven he can win and statistically played the best playoff game in football history.
Okay,
playoff. A couple years ago. It is statistically the best playoff game in history of the National Football League. Give me that guy.
I mean, yeah, he's going to need to do a lot because I think like the Ravens have a better coach and defense. So like he's going to have to be that guy and then hope Lamar messes up. Like that's just how I feel that game's going to like that's how they win, which could happen. Obviously, like that could definitely happen, but I don't know.
All right. So we move on to the next game, Eagles, Packers, right? Two quarterbacks start at the beginning of this year that I think like Love, people were really buying a lot of Love, and they were big on him. But I mean, at this point, I can't see that either of those players cards, being worth anything or even worth going out and buying right now.
I totally disagree. Love didn't have Watson, Dobbs, or and then Wicks got hurt.
Got hurt.
Reed, I'm sorry, Reed. So Wicks is out there, and didn't he get like banged up on a play too? And the week before, Love had some elbow thing where he had numbness in his hand. It's just like I feel like that game the Packers just ran out of steam. And Love has been banged up all year since the first game with Philly. I mean, I just think like his cards might go down because football fans and football cards are so reactionary. But once the national comes around, people are going to be interested in Jordan Love and the Packers again. And
we see what happened with the Hurts cards, right? I mean, do you think? And Tyler, I'm sure you're going to jump in on this. Do you think Love's cards are a buy right now? Do you think like because they bounced out of the playoffs, do we want to buy into those cards?
I'm indifferent on Love. I think that Jordan made all the right points, right? The Packers were beat up across the board, so they were just behind the 8 ball. But I don't think his market really does much of anything. One, because Green Bay fans support the market, and people also really believe in Jordan Love's skills. And the skill set is very good when you watch the tape. So I think that probably keeps him and makes him very relevant for at least one more year of getting into next season and see what it goes. On the flip side, Jalen Hurts is the most underappreciated player in the hobby. Absolutely. It is comical. This is a guy who has done nothing but win. He has been to a Super Bowl. He is never has played, bad other than at the end of last season when he was hurt and they didn't really come out and say it. And now all he's done is come back healthy, added what I would say is the best running back in football, who's going to be the offensive player of the year. And he has weapons everywhere. They've got a coaching staff that knows how to utilize him. And he just shows up and wins. And I can, he's so cheap across the board that, I just believe that at some point it can't go down because he's not going to lose consistently enough for it to tank any further. And if he goes back to a Super Bowl, which is a realistic path.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And if you really think about the path moving forward, that path is going to be there for years to come because most likely you're going to be going through, probably the Lions for a short window, the 49ers if they get healthy, etc. But Jalen Hurts is still very young, and I'll buy Jalen Hurts over Justin Herbert all day long.
Yeah.
And because at some point I can buy his cards for half of what I can buy it for Justin Herbert, and I got a guy who can actually win a game. I believe at some point the market will reflect that. I may hold them forever to get to that point, but he's not I don't think he's the quick flip, but I think long term there's a lot of opportunity there.
I mean, you're talking to a guy that took since the summer to move one of his rookie auto PSA 10 cards, right? And I just watched the price continue to drop on it. And sometimes with when you sit on cards like that long enough, you're like, yeah, I'm not making that mistake again,
Yeah.
But I can say that I bought a bunch of Love stuff last year at this time, last spring and stuff, and they did very well for me. And if the pricing is right, I may do it again. Right now, listening to you've convinced me maybe a little to add a few love cards to my to my case again, or to my my storage until the summertime, anyways.
I mean, I think the lead for this game though is Saquon. That's the market that is actually impacted by this game and what they do in the playoffs. I mean, listen. We were at Causeway on Saturday, and I almost paid $1,000 for a Saquon rookie downtown, which I could have bought 6 months ago for $325.
I think I just saw a comp of that for like 1085 somewhere, or maybe
Yeah,
not.
It was. That's the last few comps have been all over that in that
Mhm.
range, and I almost paid over the last comp for that card.
Yeah.
So
the Eagles have the Rams, right? Yep. Eagles Rams. So we could jump a little bit to that Rams Vikings game now. That was
Okay.
that was last night. I don't know, Jordan, if you want to jump in and get started, or
Yeah, so I mean, first just talking about Darnold, like so the game before the Lions game, so whatever week 17, whoever they played, he was like jolly good fellow. They were like picking him up, loving him in the clubhouse, and now everyone's like, JJ McCarthy, let's get him like immediately after like the 2 week after he loses to the Lions, which may be the most complete team in the league. I don't think that's crazy to say. Like they may be more complete than the Chiefs. Probably. They're really good. And then you get McVay, who was like the mentor, if you will, to O'Connell, and they get them in that matchup, and it's just like you get a McVay masterpiece, you get Stafford experience, and then
you get all the Jets fans in the country last night going, there it is.
Yep.
There's the Sam Darnold we love and know.
Yep. Yeah, it was rough to watch.
I've been waiting all day.
And they were cheering. The Jets fans are like, oh, thank God he fell. He collapsed.
Yeah.
I've been waiting all day to talk about this game.
Okay, jump up.
So first of all, the Rams side is easy to me. Sean McVay had a game plan. They came out, they executed. The Rams are probably underrated when it comes to just they have good skill players on offense. Stafford is experienced. He's won a Super Bowl, etc. I think from a market perspective on the Rams side, the interesting piece is Puka. Does Puka become one of those rare wide receivers who has a big market, such as Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase? It certainly helps that he signs with Panini, so that we have RPAs and rookie autos. He's not that far off if you look at the numbers, and I think that as long as he's in that offense, the numbers are going to be there. I'm going to go the complete opposite way on Sam Darnold from you all and the rest of the world. To me, what chance did Sam Darnold have last night? He got sacked 9 times. He has an O-line who can't block. If I'm the Vikings, I've got a 28-year-old quarterback in Sam Darnold who just won me 14 football games. Let's not discount that. I've got a top 5 defense. I've got a strong second-year wide receiver on a rookie contract. I got the best wide receiver in the league, and I got a top 5 tight end. So I've got skill players all around it where I don't need Sam Darnold to be a superstar. I just need Sam Darnold to be a good, solid quarterback, which is what he was all year long and won 14 games. Why would I risk that core with a rookie or a second year? Essentially, he's going to be a rookie prospect and go through those pains. It just doesn't make sense to me. If I'm the Vikings and I'm looking at the makeup of my team and my core, I'm calling the Raiders. I'm saying I'll trade you JJ McCarthy for the 6th overall pick. And this is my bold prediction. JJ McCarthy still gets traded. Sam Darnold gets re-signed to what is actually going to be a more team-friendly deal today. I can get out of JJ McCarthy probably a top 10 pick and a second-round pick because I got QB-hungry teams everywhere. Tom Brady's going to leave Fox so he can go, really run the Raiders. So I got the Michigan connection there. And if I'm the Vikings, I can take a top-notch offensive tackle. I can draft very strong, and I've got all the cap space because I'm probably not going to re-sign Aaron Jones. So I can, draft another young running back or go bring in a good player that works even better in that system than Aaron Jones did. And so I guess I just go the other way with if I'm thinking about the long term of the franchise, I would rather have Sam Darnold than roll the dice on a guy that really was, how good was he at Michigan? He's just a raw prospect. But from a draft capital perspective, he would be the top prospect in this year's draft because it's a weak quarterback draft. So I can get the world for him, and he's never played me a game. So
But they're still going to need a quarterback at some point.
Sam Darnold's 28 years old. Sam Darnold was a better prospect than J.J. McCarthy ever was. Sam Darnold played for the Jets. Even Aaron Rodgers can't win with the Jets. So, like, I discount.
He's been around. He was in the Panthers, right? He played at the Panthers, and he played somewhere else too, didn't he?
Yeah, he went backed up. He went backed up for those teams.
San Fran.
Yeah. I think that's not a bad thing, right? Like that's, we saw it much later in the career. We're watching it with Geno, who's been serviceable all of a sudden in Seattle, and take him to playoffs. Like I guess 28-year-old quarterback who was the better of the two prospects. I'm just not going to mortgage my franchise when I got Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, and Jordan Addison out there and a top 5 defense.
And
I hear that
familiarity with the quarterback too, right? And I think they'll probably have a lot to say about that as well.
I think
that's my bold prediction.
Yeah, I think that's I get your point of view on that too. I also think something they could also do, which isn't bad, is to do nothing and then let it play out. Because, like, I also remember J.J. McCarthy, from all accounts, was wiping Sam Darnold across the floor in camp of just how he was performing. So, like, if JJ is that guy, don't let him walk. You have him on the rookie deal, and then you have Sam Darnold if something goes wrong. So I guess that really comes down to what you can get for JJ if you're going to trade him. That's all it comes down to, because you're not going to give him away.
Right, but I guess I'll ask the question back to both of you. If you're the Vikings and you can get, let's say, a first and a third, like from the Raiders, would you take the 6th overall pick plus an additional 3rd round pick for a guy who is coming off a major injury?
Depends who you're going to target. Like that's what it comes down to, and I don't know who that would be. Like, it depends who you're going to target. You don't need another receiver.
It's O-line. They've got. You look at the Lions game and last night's game. I think they gave up a combined 16 sacks or something in 2 games. I mean, no quarterback's going to be successful if he's just getting smacked around. And everybody's kind of pinning it on Darnold last night, but he didn't have a chance. I mean, look at the first series. Was a perfect example. Aaron Jones gets blown up in the backfield. Darnold's under pressure, and that was the indicator of the rest of the night.
That Rams defense is not bad, by the way.
Absolute good point.
That D line
they're dangerous,
is young and very good. Yeah, absolutely.
The Rams are dangerous.
Yeah.
So here's the next question: Who do you like? Eagles, Rams. Next game.
It's in Philly. I wonder how the fatigue of everything with LA is going on for them too. Because they're going to, are they going back to LA and then are they going to be able to practice in LA and then they have to go to Philly? So I think I think Philly should have an easier way to win than LA, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine they would go back at this point.
Right. That's that. I have no idea. So, yeah.
So, but I mean, I think the Eagles are just too good. I mean, I think the Eagles are. I mean, again, good quarterback. Probably maybe the best set of skill players in the entire league. I would go on and say it is the best set of skill players in the entire league.
So I'm going the opposite way on this, and I think the weather. I don't think the weather is going to be a big deal. I think it's going to be a much closer game than we think, and I think the coaching. I think McVay is going to show up with a real game plan, to really give the Rams an opportunity. They've got tons of weapons on that team. And on the flip side, when we're looking at cards, right? I don't think there's. I mean, you mentioned Puka Nakua, but I really don't think there's any cards on that team that anybody's
No.
wanting to get or hold or flip or anywhere on that team, which is just amazing knowing that, they could show up and stand toe to toe with some of these other teams that they're playing against. Yeah.
Kyron Williams might be the third best running back in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And gets absolutely no thought process when it comes to the hobby.
Yeah.
Like zero.
He's been a fantasy gem for 2 years now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now it brings us to Detroit and the Commanders, right? So here, you've got a young, rookie quarterback, right? And he's going up against probably, and what I think, Jordan, you said earlier, probably pound for pound the best team you think in the in the NFL with the Detroit Lions, which we've seen them give up big leads all year and to win a close game. And now we look at the Commanders, and they're a team that we've seen come back from big deficits and win a close game. So to me, this is probably going to be one of the more exciting games of the week.
I think it could be. I also think you got to keep in mind, just like you said, he's a rookie quarterback and he's been amazing. But then you also have the Lions that just had a week to prepare and be ready. And it's going to be at home. Detroit's going to be going nuts. I hope it's a good game. I think Detroit's going to win, though. Like, I do. I hope it's a good game. And I think Jaden Daniels has obviously done enough where card-wise, like, he's going to be the hottest thing for football for the next year. Like,
and I'm happy. And I know we're jumping back and forth, but like I got the I showed the optic preview Red Pandora 10 today, the PSA 10, and I have a number of his other Jaden Daniels cards, and somebody said to me, oh, move those cards before the weekend, before they lose. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's market is just going to continue, like, regardless of what happens this week, his market, he's going to be last year's CJ Stroud, right? I mean, he's going to be where the prices just keep climbing and climbing and climbing to a point where you're just like, oh, how are these base rookie cards selling for $250 or something like that, right? I mean, the only thing that's going to hurt that is overproducing all those cards, right? Which we know a lot of it's happening right now, where the pop counts are going to go through the roof. But I've noticed on a number of his rookie cards that Panini decided they wanted to put black around the back, around the corners and stuff like that. And I'm starting to see all these cards that I'm getting of his that are, there's little white spots on those things. So, like, I don't want to be the first guy to send it to get rejected, but I really want to see a couple 10s come back to see if those cards have the I'm right now I'm referring to the orange disco, right, on the Prism orange discos on the back, just the corners, just two corners. They put just a little black strip of paint, coloring in there. I don't know why they did that, but that may be to, or maybe for us, it's going to curb the pop counts and make those cards even more valuable if they do gem. But I think he is going to be, our hobby darling over the next 6 months.
Yeah, I think he already is. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think the Lions win the game.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't matter at all for Daniels' market. If you look at his market, the Prism Silver market compared to Stroud's, it's almost 100% identical. The first PSA 10's Prism Silver actually comped yesterday for $1,888, which is exactly what Stroud's first couple did, and then it settled down around the $1,000 mark. I think the one thing that Daniels has going for him for the market to probably be maybe even a little more stable than Stroud's, which will actually lead to it probably being higher, is that Prism has been a tougher grade so far in 24 than it was in 23. To kind of your point about the disco Ken. So I think the pot counts will be lower from that perspective. I also think you have some other dynamics. He's the third ever rookie to win a road playoff game. And also at the same time, like, he's been so good in the fourth quarter, all the comeback wins add to the hype. And then on top of that, like, he's so dynamic, like he's Lamar Jackson style dynamic, but but he has this really high football IQ where he's learned how to not get hit already as a rookie, which is so rare. And then the other part of it is watching him do an interview. He's so freaking likable. Like everybody like the personality is there. Whereas I guess when you look back at CJ, right, that's not there with CJ. He's much more methodical, things like that. Like Jaden Daniels is marketable, dynamic, and gregarious and all these things. And that just makes it more fun to buy him, more fun to collect him.
Yeah.
So I think all that goes for. I think his market will absolutely be nuclear. Hard as heck to buy into. You're going to have to, if you want in it, you're going to have to snag raw cards and grade them. That's how, if you want to make money with Jaden Daniels, you're not going to be able to buy anything after it's graded and make anything on it unless you just buy it shows up and falls into your lap.
Yeah.
But I would buy raw as much as I can. That's my personal strategy. Is am I going to rip any Prism? As much raw as I can get my hands on, I'll buy and grade with Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and with that, not to be pessimistic, but you look forward and then it's like, yeah, that's great until the next season comes around. But what does he have to do to sustain that? And then it's just like I hate to say it, it's like there's a shelf life, because then it's year 2 and it's like, okay, he's not a rookie anymore. And you see what's happened with Stroud.
Yeah, but I think in my lane in the hobby, I think I sell all those cards in July. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, if you love Jaden Daniels and you want them, those cards, or like, if you probably wait till like in the season next year, you'll probably be able to get what you want now for a major discount.
Unless they're just crushing it again.
I get like what though? Like what? That's what I'm saying is like what keeps the prices elevated, because Stroud started off. What did they start off like 5-1?
Yeah, 5-1, 5-0. I do think the likability factor comes in there, and also I think the Houston fan base versus the Commander fan base is a drastic difference in the way the market reacts to. Yeah, right. Like I think that support that obviously East Coast I think also helps in general.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've had anything to cheer about in a long time for that team. So.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with you. At some point, they're gonna come down and settle. But that's why I said it's buy raw and grade for sure.
Absolutely.
So you both have like Detroit in this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're destined for the Super Bowl. So one other player that's not here that I just wanted to throw out there and just get your thoughts was the number 1 pick last year, Caleb Williams. Like where do you think that he stands as now with the all the rookie cards are coming out now? Is he someone you're thinking he's a buy because everybody's out on him, or I should just be out on him too, and until he does something, I'm not buying any cards?
I wrote down 6 quarterbacks that aren't in the playoffs today when I was thinking about doing the show, and Caleb Williams is not on that list. So I'll answer the question that way. Yeah. So, and just I'll list them out to y'all real quick. So Michael Penix, we already kind of touched on. Joe Burrow, just because he played the quarterback position better than anybody in the league. I don't care who wins the MVP. Joe Burrow was the best quarterback in the league this year. Drake May, Brock Purdy, when he gets people healthy back. I just bought a Mosaic rookie PSA 10 auto Purdy on eBay yesterday. Bryce Young, we'll see an interesting thing because of the way he played at the end of the season, and Carolina's going to commit to him. And then the off the wall interesting name that I think is going to be probably get some movement this summer is Sam Howell. And there's two reasons why I think that. One is Geno's in a contract. They got to decide what they're going to do with Geno's contract. But the most important thing is, regardless of what Seattle decides to do, Ben Johnson for the Lions is going to get a head coaching job. And he's made it very clear he's not taking a head coaching job unless he gets to bring his own GM with him. And Ben Johnson loves Sam Howell. So if Ben Johnson goes to the Raiders, it would not surprise me to see Sam Howell become a Raider. Ben Johnson made it an open statement to Washington last year that he only would take the Washington job as the head coach if he could keep Sam Howell as his quarterback and they not draft a quarterback.
Good thing Washington didn't listen to Ben.
Yeah,
Johnson.
I'm sure they're glad they didn't listen.
Yeah, but that's that's a really interesting dynamic that's out there about what is probably the best offensive mind in football today.
Yeah.
You know,
and I'm glad you had Drake May on that list too, because I think he played well this year. I think he's shown that he can play in this league. They just got a brand new coach, Mike Vrabel is going to be their new coach up there. So I have a feeling that they'll start to rebuild that team and give him some weapons up there, some more weapons to throw the ball to.
You feel Travis Hunter?
Yeah, I feel I'm buying Drake May right now. A lot of his stuff I'm buying because we're in the New England area.
Yeah,
right.
I will too because where we live.
Yeah, I mean, I was what's any of those Patriots cards? Jordan, you were there. I was selling all those Patriot players at Causeway. I mean, like
you bought one and then didn't even put it in the case yet, and the guy was waiting for you to sell it to him as he watched you buy it and waited for you to sell it to him. Yeah.
Which makes Joe Milton actually interesting too. That's not on this list. Yeah, because he's going to be. I mean, he's going to be a quarterback in the league somewhere next year. The Patriots will trade him, and they're going to get some ridiculous pick back for him.
Yep.
That will be absurd.
He's another one that every time, like I've been jumping into Patriot breaks, and when his cards come up, I've just been not doing anything, just keep putting them aside. I have a handful.
Your Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, I'm putting them right with the Hendon Hookers there because there's another quarterback that with people looking for quarterbacks out here. Here's a guy that I'm surprised hasn't been traded already out of the Lions organization unless they're just saying to themselves that either one, we want to keep him, he's our future, or two, everybody knows that, everybody feels he can't play and is not making moves for him.
The Giants wanted him, I thought, at the beginning of the year, and they couldn't come to a deal with the Lions. Wasn't that accurate?
Oh. Well, I'd be the happiest guy out there.
I had just actually talking about Hendon Hooker. I sent a black gold out of 8, his mosaic rookie. It should be going on auction soon. So yeah, it was in the collection buyout. So I was like, cool. I could sell it to Ken. He probably has enough.
Yeah. I got no more room in that box.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts for these games, or any cards, any players, anybody you want to mention before we close out the first episode?
Baker is interesting. Okay, that because we just kind of talked about Daniels. We didn't really talk about that game, but really quick, Baker Mayfield was so fun to watch all year. I don't know how you guys felt about that. He was like the bros quarterback, right? What was it when he had Bosa and he just had his arm out for 5 yards to the sideline and makes that throw? How do you not love watching Baker Mayfield play football? And he had a great year. He is someone that I feel like he kind of has a cult following of just fans of Baker. I don't really necessarily think that translates too well to a crazy card market, but I feel like his card market's pretty stable regardless of everything because of it. he's like a more PC Johnny Manziel. I feel like, like he's more like mainstream Johnny Football in a way. Like he just I enjoy watching him. I hope the Bucks can do whatever they got to do to get over the hump, because you talk about a team with an easy like play. When I mean over the hump, I mean like to just get a little deeper. Like they are in that division that they could just run for a while with Baker if they want. Like,
I'm glad he's found a home over there.
Me too.
Yeah.
Super fun to watch. Yeah.
All these players that start out with the Browns and they just, they feel like the Browns and the Giants are kind of the same thing. People just can't, like, they get stuck in the mud and they can't get going. Right. So I don't know. I remember Jared Goff when he went to the playoffs with the Rams, right? And they went to the Super Bowl and they lost. And I remember saying to the people I was with that he is so bad. He will never. He's one and done. He will never go back to the Super Bowl, and he'll probably be out of this league in a couple of years. And he was just about out, I think, until they traded him, right, to Detroit. And for what he did in Detroit, like, I'm eating my words, because I never thought that he would ever, I don't think he's going to win a Super Bowl, there. I just my thought, not this year anyways, but I don't know.
I think he wins one with Detroit. I don't think he wins this one. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think it's Chiefs. I think he gets the Super Bowl. I think it's Chiefs. I'll make my predictions. Chiefs, Lions. Chiefs win another Super Bowl, and Mahomes establishes himself as the best in existence in the football card market.
Come on, you can't say GOAT. You can't say greatest of all time.
I hate to.
I want to hear those Brady people coming down on me.
I hate to sound boring, but Tyler, I agree with you, and I do think though that the Chiefs do the three-peat, and then I bet the Lions get it next year. Well,
yeah,
I could see that happening. I just feel like it's like the Chiefs. They don't make sense, but they just keep winning, and like you got to be a fool to bet against them. I'd rather sit here and eat my words saying that the Chiefs didn't win the Super Bowl than me trying to say someone beat them, because I think that's just foolish.
You know what? It comes down to a lot of talent, but when you look at when I sit down and I look at what teams I think are going to continue to advance, I look at the coaching, and 3 years ago when the Chiefs and I was doing the podcast then, and I had a podcast that it came out right before the Super Bowl where I said that I felt Philly was the better team. Like going into that Chiefs Philly Super Bowl, I felt Philly was the better team. And then I sat down and I watched that game, and the first half, I mean, Philly was dominating, right? And then the Chiefs came back and won it. And what did everybody say? Oh, they got outcoached. Like that was Andy Reid's Super Bowl, right? And I think a lot of what you see, what happens, the success of the Chiefs, I think a lot of it has to do with coaching. A lot of it, and not only with Andy Reid, but Spags, their defensive coordinator. I mean, I don't know if I'm shooting myself in the foot there, because this is the first year as a Chiefs fan I really feel good about the team, right? The last 2 years I was on edge and nervous for every single game. And I'll go even as far as I was at Culture Collision last year, the night before the Chiefs played the Ravens. And I bought that Saturday night, I bought a Lamar Jackson rookie cracked ice auto, right? It was one of the biggest cards I ever bought. And I bought that the night before that game. And I said, two things are going to happen. I'm going to be excited that I bought this card, or I'm going to be excited my Chiefs win. Like, I'm going to be, either way, I'm going to be excited, right? And
let's hedge your bet emotionally. Yeah, Jesus.
And I don't think it's just Mahomes that if the Chiefs win, there's a legitimate argument out there that Andy Reid is the greatest coach of all time.
Yeah.
Because listen, and the Patriots fans will hate me for this. Bill Belichick won in New England but he didn't win before then. Andy Reid has won everywhere he's ever been. He's been to Super Bowl with multiple teams. He was a Super Bowl offensive coordinator with the Packers. And you look at his coaching tree and the success that they've had. To me, he's the best football coach.
Yeah. I've said this before too. I think the Chiefs have used a lot of what the Patriots did. I mean, if you look at the Chiefs now, it reminds me a lot of what they had a great coach. They had a great quarterback in Tom Brady, and they just kept bringing in. They had Gronkowski, right? We've got Kelsey. There's a lot of resemblance of, a solid defense, that because you need that. You need a.
And unlike past years, this is the healthiest the Chiefs have ever been this late. Like, they have everyone.
Minus Rashid.
Yeah. But they got Hollywood back. Then they picked up Hopkins. I mean, and Worthy has looked like a completely different player in the last 3 games. He's looking like what they wanted him to look like because he'll stay in bounds, hopefully.
Yeah. And they got Pacheco back.
Yep.
Yeah. And wait till next year when Eric Bieniemy is back working that offense. So.
All right. This has been a great first episode. So we're going to also try doing listener questions, right? So we've set up a Facebook group, Hobby Chop podcast. So definitely go and jump in there, and you have questions for us, comments. It's going to be on YouTube. Leave them below. Come see us on Facebook. Jordan, tell people where they can, if they want to just reach out to you, where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at zips.cards. Feel free to message me with whatever. We're definitely excited to start this journey. And like Ken said, we have the Facebook, and we're hoping to grow that into a group that can be a lot of things, not just, like mailbag questions, but it could be a buy, sell, trade for a lot of people within a Facebook group. So we're hoping to grow that too.
Tyler?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at M&TCards and more. Super excited to take this journey with you two. Ken, thanks for the opportunity to get this started. And, I would encourage everybody to ask questions, leave opinions. I don't think when you listen to this, you're going to see that I don't think any of us are afraid to be opinionated. So, it'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. I put this together, and I knew we were going to have 3 different opinions on a lot of things, although it seems we all agree on the Super Bowl. But it's nice since I'm here at Arrowhead Stadium. But yeah, and I think this is going to be really, really great. I think it's going to work out fine. I am Big Ken. You can find me at sportscard_lessons, and we will be back next week with a brand new episode. Take care, fellas.
See ya.
Thanks.